I wanted to start this course out by talking about choosing the right font. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Because is there really such a thing as a right font and a wrong font? Well, it really depends on what you're doing. Now, there's a few situations where you're going to need to get in and choose the font that's right for the piece that you're working on. Now, if it's a piece that you're starting from scratch, it really doesn't matter. You're going to be the one that sets the bar for the type of look that you're going to want to create in your piece. Another situation you might run into is that you might be having to get in and to create a very cool, very Hollywood style, let's say an internal tag for something that has to match other supers in that same piece. Then you need to go in and pick the right font for that situation. You might also want to get in and create the look of a Hollywood movie trailer. So how do you get in and choose those different types of looks? Well, in the situation where you have free reign to choose whatever font you want to work with, you can get it from the internet, you can get it from the Typekit. Now, we're going to come back and talk a little bit about the Typekit in just a second. What about a situation where you need to match a font that's currently in a piece that you may have been given that you need to update a certain section of? So how do you go about doing that? Well, you'll see that I have a little layout in front of us. It just says Mac Pro Video. And I'm using the font Gothic. Gothic is a I'll say a very famous font that's been used in many Hollywood trailers. And in this case, we're just going to assume for argument's sake that I don't know what this font is. I don't know it's Gothic, and we're going to need to pick a font that's pretty darn close to it. Now, what I've done is I've taken a snapshot of that font. You can see it right here. And I want to identify what this font is, or at least a font that's pretty darn close to this one that I'm going to be able to use to match it in the piece that I'm working on. Well, let's head on over to Google Chrome, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to a website that's called the Font Matcherator. You'll see it's at www.fontspring.com/matcherator. What we're simply going to do is we're going to take that image that we saved with our font, and I'm going to drag it and drop it into the application. Once I do, it's going to take a second or two for the site to identify the different glyphs inside of the image that I gave it, and all I'm going to do is simply say maturate it. Now give it a couple more seconds, and what it's going to do is it's going to give me a few options of fonts that I can use, which might be the exact font, or it's going to be a font that's pretty darn close to the one that I'm using. Now in this case, I do want to point out that these are paid fonts that you would have to pay for, so keep that in mind when you're working and when you're planning the budget for the piece that you're going to be creating graphics for. Now, what about a situation where you're going to want to choose a font that was maybe used in a very famous movie? I'm going to use the example of Justice League. One thing that I love about the internet is that there's always people out there creating fonts that will look like fonts that were used inside of Hollywood theatrical trailers. For example, I said Justice League. Let's head on over to a new Google Chrome browser window. What I'm simply going to do is in the search window, I'm going to type in Justice League free font. Once I do, you'll see that I can come to dafont.com, and what someone has done is they've created a Justice League font that looks almost exactly the way the theatrical one does, and what they've even done is gotten in and added special characters to add the star in between certain characters so that you get it looking exactly the way that you want it to look. Now, I want to throw something else out there for you to keep in the back of your head. Believe it or not, many Hollywood trailers use fonts that you actually have access to completely free with your Adobe Creative Cloud license. What we're going to do is I'm going to head to the Creative Cloud application, and I'm going to come to the Assets tab, and we're going to take a look at some fonts. I'm going to simply click on Manage Fonts, and the font that I want to find is the font that was used in Rogue One. Now, how do I know what font that is? Believe it or not, that's a very famous font that's been used in so many theatrical trailers, including Rogue One, and you have access to it completely free inside the Typekit. Now, I know that the font is called Trajan. I'm simply going to type in Trajan, hit enter, and what's going to happen is in a second or two, you'll see that I have access to 6 different versions of Trajan inside of the Typekit. Now, 4 of those are paid versions of the font. However, 2 of them are completely free, and we can download them and sync them with Adobe's After Effects to use them in any project that we happen to be working on. All right, now we're going to be going ahead and using Gothic as the font inside of this course. So let's now get back into After Effects, and I want to talk a little bit now about how we're going to set up our text so that we can get in and to start to create our 3D look.